betrayed WCW.
What in the hell is he doing here? Monday Nitro. He is broken.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Brett screwed Brett. The new world order, brother. Let's get this. We are at war.
Nitro 125, the same night, February 2nd, 1998, from, of all places, the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas.
You know, if they hadn't gone to 3 hours, I'm not certain that the history of wrestling would not have changed significantly. Because now they're 3 hours every single week, and they're about to go head-to-head with Raw, and then they're going to start losing their ass. Because the show's 3 hours. It is a fact over the course of wrestling history that 3 hours is too long for a wrestling show. They fucked it all up by going 3 hours. They'd have killed these guys with the 2-hour Nitro.
Nitro opened with Psychosis versus Juventud Guerrera. We talk about going back and watching some guys and realizing they're better than you remembered. Juvi's the opposite.
Actually, he wasn't too bad in this match.
You thought so?
Well, compared to some of his previous performances,
This is not the worst Juventud Guerrera performance I've ever seen. But I watched this. It was 5 minutes long. He did 3 really cool moves, and the other 4.5 minutes he was terrible.
He had a leg scissors on Psychosis' neck, and it was on so light that Psychosis kept falling out of it, and he had to put it back on himself. I understand working light, and then this is completely different.
I timed it. It took them 2 seconds after making contact with each other to fuck something up. We had Psychosis doing the worst bear hug I've ever seen, and I didn't think it was possible to do the worst bear hug I'd ever seen. I thought they were all the same. I was wrong. Juvi hits a Rana, and he starts to celebrate, and Psychosis is on the mat frantically waving, "Cover me, you idiot." Eventually, we had Juvi doing... Psychosis did a dive from the top rope to the floor. Juvi dropkicked him in midair. They both went splat on the mats. Don't do this. Juvi won with a 450.
I didn't even care about the match. All I cared about when it was over, Larry just buries Juvi for having Juvi juice on his trunks. Mm-hmm. It's like, the fuck are you there for? Like, it'd be one thing if Juvi was a heel and he had something obnoxious on his trunks, and as the babyface announcer, you're going to bury him. Juvi's a babyface, and Larry's there, and I'm pretty goddamn sure Larry's a babyface because he's feuding with Scott Hall. Just buries Juvi. Whatever, he says. Juvi juice. Ugh.
Sometimes to get yourself over, you put people down.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you know about that, bro?
Give me a break.
Had a Hogan Sting video
I didn't put
package.
you down, I put your dog down. It's two totally different things.
Talk about putting my dog down, man.
Very poor choice of words, Brian. Hogan Sting video package in which they once again show the fast count. That wasn't a fast count. Yeah, DDP cutting a promo on Chris Benoit at Thunder.
Thunder.
Yeah.
Wow, you're in a mood tonight.
I'm in such a... I watched Raw right before this fucking show started. I'm furious. It's not your fault. I'm just pointing out that...
Feels like it.
Morons added an hour on Monday and then added a 2-hour show on Thursday. Do you know how hard it is to keep track of what's going on when in the middle of Nitro, they're just showing random Thunder clips, and they spent, like, God knows how long with DDP pushing a match that is on another show.
It's on Thunder. The point of this was Benoit is getting a title shot he deserves. Paige is giving it to him, and they're going to fight on Thunder. Giant video package.
This show is all filler now.
It is. And he said he had suffered a concussion and vertebrae damage, but they still did not know the severity of his neck injury. And they showed Nash powerbombing Ray Traylor and getting escorted out last week, and he was also fined, we were told, $150,000.
Yeah. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yes, write that down. 150,000. Ultimo Dragon versus Billy Kidman.
This was good.
Yeah, I like this match.
Okay.
Dragon used...
I can bury it if you want, but...
the wackiest submission hold I have ever seen.
Right?
Where he laid on his own belly. He put Kidman's head between his legs. He grabbed Kidman's arms and tried, as far as I could tell, to pull Kidman's head into his ass.
It was like a reverse stump puller?
Let's talk about the best part of this. He's got him in this hold. They do a close-up of Kidman's head in his ass, and Kidman is grimacing.
I bet.
Well,
And they go to Tenay or Shivani, who goes, great shot. I swear to God, that's what happened.
You're right. You're right.
I'm not making this up.
Oh, God. So, Dragon finally, after a lot of interference from the Flock, Dragon hits a top rope Rana and the Dragon Sleeper for the win. Flock attacks. They lay him out. Kidman finishes him off with a shooting star press. Riggs randomly dumps Lodi out of the ring. No one knows why. It leads to nothing.
Because he's Lodi.
Even his own friends hate him.
Yeah.
and Raven's not with the Flock, and later on we see him get his entrance all by himself. And now the Flock is flown? I don't know.
I don't know. Kevin Nash came out and cut the best babyface promo I ever saw.
God, have you watched Raw?
No.
Yeah, there's
Well,
another
after
one.
Raw, it's going to be the second babyface, the best babyface promo you
Let
ever
me
saw.
guess. Rusev.
No, Hunter.
Oh, yeah. All right.
This fucking guy comes out. He's a top heel. And the first thing he does is astutely and correctly note that Kidman just used a Tiger Bomb, and he was neither fined nor arrested. Everybody cheers. He says, I don't give a shit if I get fined. I don't give a shit if I get arrested. I'll pay my fine. I'm rich. And if I don't pay it, Hogan's going to pay it for me. I do what I want, when I want, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. Everybody cheers
It goes crazy for Stone Cold Kevin Nash.
because your goddamn top heel is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And he leaves. I was like, what in the hell was this? Next thing you know, one of the heels is going to come out and do a survey,
You never know.
and everyone's going to cheer him.
Chris Jericho came out, cut a fake babyface promo. That was supposed to be a fake babyface promo. Thanks the fans for their support, which is a quick recovery to Rey Mysterio Jr. This led to Chris Jericho versus Super Calo. Very scary match. By the way, do you realize Chris Jericho is almost as old today as Larry Zbyszko was here on Nitro when he was the living legend, and Jericho was just a main eventer?
Wow.
Yep, that's what happens.
Yes. So anyway. First of all, Jericho gets the heat when Calo tries a Rana and Jericho falls backward, drops him neck first across the ropes. This required perfect placement and timing by both men to get it right. We had Jericho getting up top, getting knocked off, doing a flip bump to the floor, and then Calo falling with a senton over the ropes to the floor, falling headfirst in the process. We have a double jump missile drop kick back in the ring, and finally Calo botches the head scissors off the top rope, and Jericho figures, okay, we have pushed our luck too far, let's just end this, and puts him in the Boston Crab and wins.
The Lion Tamer. I should add, by the way, that Jerichoholics debuted on this show. Mm-hmm. There was a Lion Tamer submission, or the Walls of Jericho, as they call it today. In the blink of an eye, this man became the modern Chris Jericho right here on this show. Because last week he wasn't using Jerichoholics. It debuted this week. Last week he had some, what did he say? He called him something wacky. He had some terrible name.
And he's now 3 or 4 weeks into his never, ever again catchphrase.
I'm going to find out what he said.
He's developing very quickly. Steve Regal versus Booker T. Regal was too fat for a singlet. Zbyszko pointed this out. And it was not just cosmetic. He was sweating buckets just a minute or two into the match.
Yeah, he's about to be fired for drug issues.
Well, yeah. He's had his demons.
But you know what? There's very few men in this business. It could be so far gone that you're going to be fired in the mid-90s
For drugs.
from WCW for drugs.
Yes.
That's mind-blowing, number
Yeah.
one. But to be this good in that state,
That's fair.
that's also
It's not like-
astonishing.
It's not like it was a bad match. You can just tell he was not at peak form.
Okay, so last week on the show, Chris Jericho referred to his fans as Chris Jericho disciples. That
Yeah.
lasted 1 week. And somewhere in that week, he discovered Jerichoholics. The rest is history.
So Booker had a suplex, the spinneroonie, and the sidekick for the win.
You know, in just 2 more weeks, might even be next week. I can't exactly remember, but I was told
I think it's next week, but go ahead.
we get
Oh, no.
Goldberg and Regal.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
cool with that.
Goldberg's not. They recapped Bret Hart's promo last week where he put Flair over and then said he wanted to be world champion.
Yeah, where the hell's Brett? Where the hell's Flair?
Don't know.
Where are these guys?
Well, they only have 3 hours.
3 hours and neither of them are on the show. They had the best match at the pay-per-view.
Hey, we got Dusty.
Great promos. And they're gone.
Conan versus Hugh Morris, they were on the show.
Battle of the Dungeon of Doom.
It was. They didn't mention
Conan
this.
and Hugh Morris.
It was fine.
Yeah, Conan was the babyface and got a big babyface pop.
Yeah.
He's a bad guy.
Well, the NWO is cool.
I don't know what to tell you.
I'm so over the 90s. This may be the last retro show. I've hit my limit.
So Morris went up top for the moonsault, Vincent knocked him down, and Conan won with a pedigree.
Yeah. A pedigree.
Yeah.
He didn't hook the arms, but it was a pedigree.
I guess that's true. It was I don't know what Ron Bass called the move, but that's how he did it
Yeah,
too. Yeah. Scott Hall and Dusty Rhodes came out for a survey.
Oh, man. So he comes out for a survey. Everybody loves the guy. Then he says, I won the World War III Battle Royal. And every year, the winner of the World War III Battle Royal gets a title shot at Super Brawl. But goddammit, Roddy Piper came out here, and he says, I'm not getting a title shot. I want to know why, and I want to know who I should be mad at. And I thought, this fucking guy is goddamn right. Why is he not getting a championship match at Super Brawl?
I don't know.
He won the match. It's a stipulation, and this guy's getting fucked.
Yes.
Then Dusty, who is enormously fat, cuts a promo. Now think about this, by the way. This Dusty is 11 years removed from the Dusty we watch every Sunday night on those Crockett shows. Mm-hmm. He looked 30 years older on this show. Mm-hmm. He rambled on and on. Like, Scott goes, Dusty, who should I be mad at?
I have no idea what Dusty's point was.
Dude, he rambled on for 2 minutes, and when it was over, I don't even know what he said.
I forgot the question.
The question was, who should I be mad at?
Yeah.
We never got an answer. And then they left, and everybody cheered them. This era is killing me.
Scott Hall versus Jim Neidhart.
Oh, this turned my night around.
They spelled Jim Neidhart's name wrong in the graphics. So Luis Piccoli runs in and says, Scott Hall, you've been robbed of your title shot. You should not fight again until you get your match.
Good point.
I will fight for you in your place. And it was a distraction to let Hall jump Neidhart from behind.
Scott Hall takes his microphone and he waffles Neidhart in the back of the head and he knocks him down, presumably out cold. And Charles Robin says, rings a bell.
Oh, yes.
And the match starts.
Yes.
What a dick.
It makes no sense. So did either of you catch?
The gimmick thumb? Yes.
No,
Please
before
explain.
that. Before that. Scott Hall whips Neidhart into the corners. Mm-hmm. Neidhart takes the corners, but then dodges the charge. Hall goes crashing the turnbuckle, and Neidhart calls punches. And then he starts laying in punches. Was that necessary?
You don't need to call that
Wouldn't
spot.
you figure that if you start throwing punches, Hall will know what to do?
Gives a shit. Can we talk about the gimmick thumb?
So Neidhart
What was
pulls
the gimmick thumb? When the fuck in his whole career did Jim Neidhart have a gimmick thumb?
Well, here in the January 1998 on Nitro.
May I add, he's a babyface.
Mm-hmm. Are you sure? I can't tell anymore.
Listen,
on this whole show,
he's a babyface because Hall's supposed to be a heel.
How do you know?
Neidhart gets like a fucking, like, I swear to God, the old magician magic thumb that you pull the goddamn scarf out of. He's got a taped up gimmick thumb that he puts on his thumb and he puts it on the guy's neck.
Yes.
And Hall's selling it.
Yeah.
It's the Asian spike.
Yes, the fake thumb-assisted Asiatic spike. Let's see. Dusty climbed the apron to distract Neidhart, and Hall put Neidhart away with a very scary outsider's edge. I shrieked in terror.
Let's talk about Dusty's interference. Dusty Rhodes, okay, so Neidhart puts on a gimmick thumb. He puts it on Hall's neck. Hall is going unconscious. Fuck only knows why. Dusty Rhodes jumps up on the apron, and he wants a tag.
Yes.
In a singles match.
Yes.
Neidhart is distracted.
Yes.
Like, could you be any dumber?
No.
Then Hall picks him up, and Hall goes for the edge. Neidhart wants to do anything on this earth except take this edge. He's looking behind him.
Don't blame him,
like,
actually.
goddamn, is there a ground there? Like, what are you looking at? Why are you looking? Looks around, takes the bump. It's horrible. Pins the guy. and then they jump Neidhart, and Bulldog runs down to make the save.
Oakland brought Lex Luger out for a promo. He plugged his upcoming no DQ match against Randy Savage.
You know, I didn't mind Nitro, but as we review it, I'm just full of fury.
Yeah, we need to get you a drink.
My
It's not going to help.
only thought throughout the show was the show is too long and I can't wait for it to end. I didn't think any segments were particularly good or bad, although going back over them I realized they were bad.
Did you notice Lex was wearing the Canadian tuxedo? Denim on denim.
Denim on denim, sleeveless of course,
Yeah.
with a fanny pack. We're still doing Nitro Party clips.
Yeah.
I thought last week was the payoff we'd be done with these.
Hell
now.
no.
And what a payoff it was.
This party was so lame, Heenan buried it immediately thereafter. Bill Goldberg versus Mark Starr.
This was good.
Was I the only one that thought that this might be Mike Awesome for a second?
He had a mullet.
Oh, yeah.
Was Mike?
No, I looked it up. I had to...
It was Mike Adequate.
Ah,
They teased leg locks. Goldberg slammed him, speared him, jackhammered him, and it was awesome.
That all happened.
minute 12.
Remember the end of WCW when they had a Mike Awesome, a Mike Modest, and above average Mike Sanders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With all, Mikes of every quality.
This was below average Mark Starr.
Sure. Right. Davey Boy Smith versus Steve McMichael.
Dude.
Oh, my God. But you know what? It was fun.
It was so much better than last week.
That's really fun.
Davey Boy comes out. You recall he had a terrible match with Mongo last week. He came out this week in the proper mindset. He was loaded for bear. He knew he had a job to do and it was going to be a work. I have never seen a man put so much focus, effort, and intensity into a cactus clothesline, but god damn it, they both made it over the ropes.
Can you imagine they put these guys in the ring together and decided to do that spot? Let's do a clothesline over the top and we'll both tumble to the outside. Oh, you and Mongo? Great idea.
So they brawl up to the announce area, they both get counted out, and then Mongo takes the referee. And I've only seen, he threw I guess you call it a punch to the ref. I've only seen 3 people ever throw a punch like this. Mongo here, Sid in all of his matches, and Boris Karloff in Frankenstein. That is it.
Boris Karloff threw a punch in Frankenstein?
The way he waved his arm like this,
Yeah.
like this.
I thought he had a boxing skit in that movie or something like that.
Isn't it funny how Davey
No.
Boy
No.
in WWE, he had that amazing match with Shawn Michaels at the One Night Only pay-per-view. He had that run with Owen, and him and Shawn and Austin had that amazing match. And I've never seen a guy have more awesome... Just shut up for a second, okay? I've never seen a guy have more awesome matches.
Bret Hart, SummerSlam.
And then he comes to WCW, and he's put with Mongo?
I was going to say, may I speak? We're comparing his match with Mongo to, we had Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart,
I understand.
Owen Hart.
But if you know you're getting that caliber an athlete on your roster and you put him in with Mongo immediately,
Well, you see, they're dumb, and I'm sure that they thought Davey was clearly carrying Bret.
I actually see
And
the
Shawn
I
Michaels.
see the point Craig is trying to make here.
thank you.
Bulldog had a wide range of quality depending entirely of who he's working with.
Right.
He could work up to the level of the top guys and way, way down to the level of the bottom guys.
My whole point is, why are you surprised that WCW did something really stupid?
I was just pointing it out, Brian.
Bret Hart and Ric Flair just had the best match of the year, and they're gone. They have vanished off television. Honest to God, I remember this. I don't think we see them again for months. They were punished for doing the best interview segments and having the best matches. These fucking people have no idea what they're doing.
Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff came out for a promo.
This may have been the best thing on the show.
Oh, it's, in a way. He's putting over Nash. Nash is the true giant. He's always got my back. He has the green light to powerbomb anyone he wants. I'll pay the fines. Sometimes he said the fine was $1.5 million. Later he said the fine was $50,000.
He doesn't give a shit.
He wants Nick Patrick to be the ref for his rematch with Sting, and he was going to beat Sting at the pay-per-view.
Let me give Jericho some credit here. Last week, Jericho cut a promo, and he called his fans Chris Jericho disciples. He went back and he thought, that fucking sucks. I need something better. And he came up with Jerichoholics. This goddamn Hulk Hogan has been saying NWO-ites
Yes.
Yeah.
for at least a year. And he just keeps saying it.
Yes.
It's terrible. It is horrible. That is, honest to God, the best he could come up with. NWO-ites.
Yes. It's bad to come up with.
It's bad. You know what it is? It's bad. NWO-ites. Like, it doesn't roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't remind you of anything else. There's no smoothness to it.
NW Owens?
NWO-ites.
Raven versus Disco Inferno.
Hey, this was good.
Yeah.
Raven cuts a promo with the patient. He says, someone's getting DDT tonight.
Well, what he said was there was only one man that he's ever listened to in his life. And that man had 2 rules. Rule number 1, there are no rules.
Right.
But somehow there was a rule fucking number 2, which was everyone must feel the DDT. That doesn't make any sense, by the way.
No.
But anyway, I think they were teasing bringing in Jake the Snake Roberts,
Sounds that way.
who a year later on Heroes of Wrestling was running around drunk using his snake as a giant cock.
Yes.
Huh.
And may not have been the low point of the show. We should watch that again sometime.
No.
You know, we should, because I'd bet you anything,
It's not so bad.
it's not so bad anymore. The standards in wrestling have fallen to such depths that we would probably watch it and say, that was fine.
So Raven and Disco had a fun match.
I mean, you really think in the last 19 years we haven't seen a match worse than the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov?
Oh, I know we have.
Versus the Bushwhackers. Guaranteed we have.
Charmel and Survivor General was worse.
Guaranteed. And probably a lot more than that.
What was the one we just watched from
Rebel
TNA?
and- Rebel and Shelley.
Yes, that was worse.
Guaranteed.
I guarantee you Iron Sheik never screamed, my vag.
Wasn't as hot, that's for sure.
That's fair. Anyway, Disco Inferno here, like half his moves were schoolboys. It's not working, dude. Give up. Finally, Raven won with, as predicted, a DDT. And the big spot they showed in the replay was Raven smiling as Disco kicked him.
So why in the world is Raven having problems with his flock? And it just came out of nowhere.
If we're going to start asking questions about WCW, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
The next match has the only angle right now and storyline that makes sense.
Listen, the next match was the best thing on either show
Absolutely.
all night long. It's the Steiners and Nash and Bagwell. Now listen, I am far from the biggest fan of Kevin Nash. Even Kevin Nash was awesome in this. Bagwell and Nash are working great together, and Scott, of course, refuses to tag his partner in again. So Nash finally goes for the power bomb. Rick hits the ring, lays him out with a lariat.
I must stop you. Nash goes to the power bomb. Biggest pop on the show.
Of course, he's a babyface. He's Steve Austin.
Gotten his move more over than anyone else's by not doing it and getting it banned. The man's not dumb.
So Nash tags Bagwell. Scott is right there. He has the opportunity to tag in his brother. And to their credit, the place is going crazy. Scott, tag him! They're screaming. They're begging for him to tag. He turns his back on his brother. He whips Bagwell in. And this giant, muscle-bound, he's got to have gained 30 pounds.
He's at least 280.
He leaps high into the air, and he does the prettiest Frankensteiner
Yes.
you've ever seen. Rey Mysterio is at home going, I ain't coming back, because I can never top that Frankensteiner. He hits it, he makes the cover, and he gets the pin. Now, the only problem with this, and it's not even really a problem, Rick and DiBiase are very, very mad that Scott didn't make the tag. Mm-hmm. And Scott's like, we won! Which is, in fact, a valid point.
Yeah.
What are you shitheads mad about? We won! You didn't have to do any work. You got paid to do nothing. I won the whole match for us. Like, what are you so mad about? So, the Steiners get in each other's face, and Rick is screaming at Scott, and Scott is screaming at Rick. And in the background, Kevin Nash moves so that you see him right between both men.
Yes.
And he starts
He's pounding his fist, cheering for a fight.
Yeah.
begging for them to hit each other. Yeah. This was awesome.
No, it's been so good. The storyline has been so good. It's been 4 weeks.
Both of them, actually.
Yeah, they've teased this dissension, and we still don't know why. We don't know what Scott's motivation is, or why he's doing whatever. It works.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
And the
Well,
power-
you know,
and the
he's
Powerball
developed
stories.
some rage
I see.
along with his 30 pounds of mass.
Yeah.
That's the storyline, I guess.
Main event of Randy Savage versus Sting.
I hope you wrote down some of the stuff that Buffer said.
Only one quote. He described Randy Savage as, quote, the man who does it all at full blast ahead.
He's not wrong.
What does that mean?
I love when he
doesn't have a break.
called Sting the enigmatic man of mystery
Something like that, yeah.
who recognizes no authority
That's right.
in the world. Buffer always has to add something like in the world.
Yeah.
Because I guess he feels if he says he recognizes no authority, like there may be confusion. So he has to add no authority in the world. And he also claimed that Sting weighed 252 pounds.
Wow.
Very skeptical of that weight.
So they were in the Alamo Dome. And yes, Sting did descend from the rafters. Way
40
way the hell
stories
up there.
he came down.
Took me a long time to come down. Comes down amidst the fans, makes his way to the ring. Savage tries to flee, Sting's running him down. Savage removes a turnbuckle pad, but nothing happens for a while. Sting begins his comeback by no-selling a pile driver. Then he tries a Stinger Splash, hits the exposed buckle. Savage hits the big elbow. Savage makes a cover. The ref counts 1, the ref counts 2, and then Hogan is there to break up the pin for the DQ. Now, to his credit, Sting, who the company clearly is screwing left and right, took it upon himself to at least kick out before what would have been a 3 count as well. But my God, they tried to make it look like Sting got pinned here and Hogan had to save him.
Well, that was the whole idea because, first off, I think Sting kicked out because Savage hits the elbow, and then he sits there, and then he moves to the other side of Sting or whatever, and he's clearly stalling because they have to wait for Hulk Hogan to run down the aisle of the Alamo Dome.
Go back and listen to the Royal Rumble show when we talked about how long it took big guys to get down that ring.
We didn't mention on the show, but for the fat guys, they had a cart
Yeah, it was not clear on camera.
that drove them down that goddamn aisle. So Hulk Hogan, who's 40-something years old and doesn't move very well, he has to make it all the way down the aisle. I think he started running when Sting started descending from the rafters. So I think Sting knew, okay, I got to rely on this guy getting all the way down this aisle and jumping in and breaking it up. I'm fucking kicking out. Especially this fucker who's fucked him like 6 times.
Yes.
He's not laying down. So he kicks out. But the key is the announcers did point out that Hulk Hogan was breaking it up because he wanted to be the guy that pinned Sting and not Savage. So that was the story, that Savage had Sting beaten, but Hogan broke it up.
Yes.
Could they fuck this guy any worse?
It's amazing.
Like,
Has there been any segment where he has not been fucked since Starrcade?
I don't think so.
I think every week they find some new way to undercut him.
Everybody
Cut his legs out.
Everybody talks about the slow count or the fast count or whatever at Starrcade. Dude, it just kept going. It wasn't one show.
No.
It was one show after another. They cut this dude's legs off.
It was weeks upon weeks of sabotage. But he was getting paid. And I think that mattered to him a lot more. So, anyway, Luger runs down and attacks Savage. The NWO attacks and Sting clears the ring, and the show ends with Lex and Sting side by side.
Yeah, they're standing side by side, and Tony Schiavone is screaming, "Sting rules the ring." I'm like, I just saw him pinned, geek. These shows are so bad. And Nitro actually wasn't that bad.
No.
Raw was so bad that my lingering hatred for that show extended into the Nitro report. But Nitro was just a 3-hour show with a whole bunch of matches that didn't need to be 3 hours long and had like one good thing on the whole show. All right, Nitro. Nitro was definitely better than last week.
Nitro number 125, February 9th. I forgot to change that date. God forbid I get that wrong. Hollywood Hogan and Eric Bischoff came out for a promo. Hogan says the words out on the street. The words in the gyms of Venice Beach. The word is out in all the girly bars.
Excuse me?
That's what he said.
The girly bars.
Girly bars. So the word is that Randy Savage is leaving the NWO. He says, Savage, I know you're in the building tonight.
That is a hot topic in the girly bars.
I bet it was.
I do remember this in 1998.
And Hogan says, I'm going to give Savage the wrestling lesson of his life. And Savage appears in the crowd. Cuts a total babyface promo, vows to kick Hogan's ass and take his place against Sting in the championship match at Super Brawl.
That was a good segment.
That was a good segment. The announcers noted that Larry Zbyszko was not there. They did not know where he was, but they still put his graphic on the screen so we could see his name in front of an empty chair. Showed clips of Mongo versus Bulldog. I don't know why you would ever do this, but they did. Then we have Steve McMichael versus Glacier.
Steve Mongo McMichael versus Glacier.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things about Nitro. They'd put any goddamn match together. They totally didn't care.
So, Louis Spicolli comes out to join the announce desk. I didn't think he was very good. He had no chemistry with Shivani or Tenay. They're just doing unfunny comedy for, as it turned out, like 45 minutes. Meanwhile, in the ring, Mongo and Glacier had no chemistry either.
Was Spicolli any worse than Larry normally is?
That's actually a good point. Maybe a little, because he talked faster and mumbled more, or not such mumble, but just softer and said too much stuff. But anyway, that had a crappy match, although I will say, when Mongo hit his tombstone and won at the end, people were still jumping up and down with glee.
I think that the best spot was Mongo is on his knees in the middle of the ring, and Glacier goes to the top rope, and he leaps off the top rope, and Mongo responds by doing a back elbow from his knees to knock the guy out of midair.
Yes. That happened.
I don't know what the plan was, but I'm glad I got to see that at least once in my lifetime. That was so bad.
So Mongo wins, and out comes Mortis. Mm-hmm. Do you recall a conflict between Mortis and Mongo? Why did Mortis hit the ring?
I don't know, something with Glacier? Weren't they going to get together or been together? I don't even remember.
Mortis
I have no
attacked
idea.
Mongo made his own comeback, tombstone Mortis too.
Yeah.
Then Mongo says, Bulldog, I hope you're watching because you're next.
Can't wait for that match. That rematch.
Conan versus, in his Nitro debut, Norman Smiley.
I don't want to say anything negative about Norman Smiley. Sure, he's a nice guy. But he's one of the main trainers at the Performance Center. He was so bad in this match. This was a bad wrestling match between him and Conan.
I was trying to figure out how two guys who had both spent, I believe, most of their careers working in Mexico could be so totally on two different pages throughout the entire match. Now, the other thing about this is, and this isn't, well, mostly not Norman's fault, but the announcers were fucking around with Spicolli the entire time and doing dumb jokes. Norman comes out, no graphics, never been on Nitro before. If you didn't know who he was, you would just think he was a random black fella with a good body in lemon yellow trunks that said magic on the ass and no knee pads. And wrestlers who wore trunks and no knee pads always look creepy. So they did a bunch of...
Jack Gallagher?
Creepy.
I guess so.
Did a lot of wacky lucha roll-ups. Conan hit a Fisherman Buster and the Tequila Sunrise for the win. And then Vincent's out there with the NWO, and they go to cut a promo into the camera. Conan was gassed. It's not quite as bad as the recent Luger matches we've been watching, where he's gassed in a minute.
Nothing in the world could be worse than that.
But he's gassed after these 4 matches like he's going to lay down and die after a 4-minute match. Mike Tenay interviewed some guy from General Motors.
Brad Dillon.
It was about WCW sponsoring a race car.
Lance Hooper.
Now,
who looked like Frank Shamrock.
They showed Lance Hooper posing for photos. Now, Lance Hooper's job is to get into a car and drive at 180 miles an hour in very tight traffic for 3 hours and not die. But he was terrified at doing this photo shoot. Very awkward man. Nick Patrick was in the ring, and JJ came out to address him.
Now, I got to talk about this very quickly. Nick Patrick's just standing there getting ready to referee a match. JJ comes out. JJ Dillon feels the need to stop the show. The show cannot go on. Nick Patrick, you are not the official assigned to the following match. You must get out of the ring. You're under suspension. Nick actually cuts a great promo, pleads his case. He's never been to trial. He's been here since Ted Turner bought the company.
Never been to trial. I like that line.
Yeah. Been here forever. He never left, unlike J.J. Dillon. Threatens a lawsuit. Dillon says it doesn't matter. Get the hell out of here. And then, out come Disco Inferno and Yuji Nagata. Why the fuck could Nick Patrick not referee Disco Inferno and fucking Yuji Nagata? He fucking stopped the show. Like Hulk Hogan and Sting are about to have a match, and Nick Patrick is not the man for the job. He fucking came out and stopped the show, and they argued about lawsuits in the middle of a live wrestling show. And the fucking match is Disco Inferno and Yuji Nagata. I couldn't believe my eyes.
No, that's about it. I just couldn't figure out why they were even bothering with this. Why is this stupid ref angle that has run its course twice now?
Because Hogan and Sting are wrestling again, and they need a referee. And Hogan wants it to be Patrick, because Patrick has fucked Sting twice. And WCW doesn't want it to be Patrick. That's the storyline.
It's a dumb storyline. The storyline should be it's Hogan versus Sting. Why are you throwing this other bullshit in there? Yuji Nagata versus Disco Inferno did happen. So I was listening to Spicoli during this match, and something occurred to me. I may have been too hard on him earlier. He was 2 decades ahead of his time because he was a comedy goof. He could be kind of funny at times. He could wrestle a little bit. But it was the Monday Night Wars, and if you were a comedy goof in the Monday Night Wars, you were Scott Hall's lackey, and you feuded with announcers. If you're a comedy goof in 2016 or 2017 on Monday Night Raw, they put the tag team and or universal straps on you and push you to the moon.
That's true. He missed his calling.
He did. So this match ruled because it was just Yuji Nagata beating the shit out of Disco Inferno.
Until Disco hit the chart buster, the stone cold stunner.
Literally,
And everybody went nuts.
literally, Disco's on the offense. Yuji's going for the Nagata lock, but Sonny jumps in the apron and says, no, don't finish him yet, continue the beating. So Yuji goes up, he misses a fist drop, and Disco hits the stunner and wins. Now, you recall earlier I was very confused why Mortis had hit the ring. And here we are, these many minutes later, I am so confused. I was also confused when La Parka hit the ring and attacked both these men with a chair.
Well, they're going to feud over who's the better dancer. Thought that was abundantly clear.
La Parka and Yuji?
No, and Disco.
Then why did he hit Yuji?
No, Parka waffled Disco.
He also waffled Yuji Nagata.
Yeah, he was just,
I don't know, actually.
he was in Texas.
I was quite confused by all
Fans
this.
loved it. Well, Nagata was just, he was there. He was the wrong place, wrong time.
Mike Tenay interviewed Lex Luger.
This was one of Luger's best promos of his
He
career.
was very angry. He's sick of Hogan. He's sick of Savage. Says, both you guys are overlooking Sting. Savage, I have a match with you. You're overlooking me. I hope you beat each other's ass tonight. And then I think he challenged the winner to a match.
Yes.
And based on what happened later, I believe that is the case.
Yes, he said he wanted Savage after the main event tonight, no matter who won.
Very passionate about all this. Then we had the best match I've ever seen in my life.
This is awesome.
Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho versus Dean Malenko and Chavo Guerrero in El Paso, Texas. First of all, a quick note. Schiavone says, this match is brother against brother. I mean, brother against nephew. And then he just gave up. Tenay filled him in. It was nephew versus uncle later. But the point is, it was 4 very close friends. And what usually happens in wrestling matches when you get 4 close friends together is they tend to beat the crap out of each other. And they did here. And it was glorious.
I read the review of this in The Observer, and Dave claimed that the fans were into Chavo and Eddie. I don't know what match he was watching. Mm-hmm. The fans were super into Eddie Guerrero, who I might add was a heel. And even though Chavo Guerrero was his nephew, they were not into Chavo. In fact, they booed Chavo. Chavo was booed in this match as part of the babyface team.
In El Paso.
I guess it's the babyface team, because I think Malenko's kind of a heel, sort of, isn't he? I don't even know. This show's too hard to follow.
I don't know, but this match was so awesome.
It was great.
Like, I know everyone knows...
Eddie was the best guy by far.
I know everyone knows Eddie Guerrero was great, but trust me, all of you, you've forgotten just how great he was.
Yes, if
he
you've
was
not seen...
unbelievable.
If you've not seen Eddie since his WWE days, or you never saw him when he was in WCW,
Also true.
you got to go back and watch this match. He blew away my favorite wrestler, Dean Malenko. He blew away Chris Jericho. He fucking blew away his poor nephew, Chavo. He blew away everybody in this match. He was like the best wrestler I ever saw in this match.
So fucking good. So, he on Dean for a long time. Chavo gets the hot tag, runs wild, goes up top, but Eddie shoves him off. Jericho hooks the Boston Crab for the win. Young wrestlers all over the world need to watch this to learn how to do a tag match. This was great.
I'll say.
And a video package showing the tension between the Steiner brothers. El Dandy versus Juventud Guerrera.
Dandy versus Hoovy is what I wrote.
First of all, Dandy's music. This is the jauntiest music of all time.
Well, he's a jaunty dude.
He is a jaunty dude. It fit. Had a very fun little match. Didn't have a lot of time, but they did the most with what they had. And Hoovy won with the Michinoku driver and the 450.
Now, the best thing about this was when Jericho came out afterwards, and Hoovy... Well, Jericho comes out and attacks him, and then when he gets beat up, he claims he was there to congratulate him. He can't believe this disrespect. So Hoovy wants a mask versus belt match, but the problem is, Hoovy doesn't speak any English.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is, Chris Jericho does speak Spanish. And so, we had a segment where the babyface issued a challenge in a foreign language to a heel. The heel correctly translated for the babyface and then accepted his own challenge. I don't have the words to explain how awesome this was. This was so... I mentioned last week that last week was the week where a switch flipped and Chris Jericho became modern. Like, prior to 2 weeks ago, he was the old Chris Jericho. He was the WCW Chris Jericho. But last week, he suddenly became Y2J. This was exactly what you would see on Raw in 2017. Delivery was the same. Comedy was the same. Everything was the same. It was totally modern, and it was awesome. This segment ruled.
So does Jericho versus Hoovy at Super Brawl, mask versus title. Had a Goldberg hype video, followed by one of Goldberg's most famous matches.
Okay. This match. I don't know about you, but this was the first time I'd seen this match since it happened. This match has grown in the telling. This match has been completely blown out of proportion. There was no shoot. Regal wasn't shooting on Goldberg. Regal was in there, probably a little bit fucked up, and he decided that he was just going to call a bullshit match with Goldberg. I think maybe in his mind, he thought he was going to get a great match out of this guy. He certainly did not.
No.
There were a couple of hard shots. They were on different pages here and there. I mean, it certainly was not the match that Goldberg should have had. It certainly didn't ruin Goldberg.
No.
It wasn't a shoot.
No, that is the key.
It was just a really bad match.
The most you could say is that at times Regal was not cooperating.
I don't even know if you could say that.
Yeah. They were definitely on different pages, that's for sure. But,
I mean, you know that Goldberg was just going to listen.
Yeah.
And Regal thought, I got an idea. And this was it.
There were times when Goldberg would try something and Regal would say, I'll just counter this instead. And it was just sloppy and bad. It went 3 or 4 minutes. They both came out looking pretty silly. And then Goldberg won with the jackhammer and the spear, or the spear and the jackhammer. And he went on being Goldberg. In the long run, it really meant nothing.
But am I imagining things where, like, nowadays the story is, well, you know, Regal was a carnival shooter.
That's the way I've...
And he went in there and he taught this Goldberg a lesson.
That is the story I've heard, too. That he exposed Goldberg.
No, he exposed himself as calling a shitty match with a green guy.
Yeah. It was not a shoot. It was not teaching him a lesson. It just was a bad match.
And keep in mind, Regal is fired very shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
This was a bad time in his career. He may have been out of his mind here.
Well, on that note, Louis Spicolli versus Chris Adams. So I was aware, watching this afternoon, that neither of these men was long for this earth at the time this is taped. So I looked up exactly when they passed. Louis died 6 days later.
Yep.
And Adams made it about a year and a half. So this is Louis Spicoli's last TV match, at least maybe not Thunder, but last Nitro match. And they're in there doing their stuff. It was short. Raven and the Flock came out during this 2-minute match. And Adams hits the super kick. Spicoli gets the ropes. Blatantly smashes Adams in the head with the briefcase with the DQ. Really hard in the head. And he's going after him after the match, but Zbyszko finally arrives. Chases Spicoli around the ring. Spicoli flees to the back. Then Larry, the babyface, cuts a promo.
Oh my god. This is such a fucking terrible promo. He's supposed to be a good guy.
Yes. Larry cuts a promo about how Louis had broken into his room and stolen his bags. All right, fine. And then Louis also paid off his limo driver to drop him off in the wrong neighborhood. Okay, weird, but all right. And this limo driver dropped him off in the wrong neighborhood in El Paso. And I don't speak Spanish, Larry says.
This fucking numbskull.
It was just depressing from start to finish.
Hey, I hate to use these terms based on the fact that Louis Spicoli passes away 6 days later, but there's no other way to describe what happened. Spicoli fucking waffles this guy in the head. And he does, in fact, fall down like he's dead. He doesn't move. He's unconscious. It pained me to laugh at this. But in pro wrestling, the idea that a man could be knocked unconscious, and the first thing that the referee does is he reaches down and he lifts his arm up in the air to announce that he's the winner, and then lets go and it falls back down to the mat. I'm like, this is so goofy. I wish I could have made this statement here under better circumstances. Mm-hmm. By the way, so we went to SmackDown tonight, and in the opening segment, it starts out with Daniel Bryan coming out to talk about how he's grateful because we're here in Seattle. Now, I didn't have a notepad. I didn't take notes. I mean, I watched this totally as a fan. I was doing a little bit of tweeting, but I watched this show totally as a fan. And at the end of the opening segment, it really hit me how ridiculous professional wrestling is. This was a live television show where we're supposed to believe that a fella came out to talk about gratitude, and then four geeks of their own accord came out one at a time and started yelling at each other. And then the guy signs him to a match that takes up 25 minutes of television time. Under, I guess, the assumption that we didn't have anything else on the show here tonight.
That's the key. And it was the opener, by the way.
Yeah.
So apparently he had nothing planned for after his speech.
I mean,
just dead TV, an empty ring for 20 minutes.
I was just watching it as a fan thinking, this is ridiculous. This is completely ridiculous. This is so phony and staged.
I'm sure it's happened, well, often in pro wrestling, but that's a,
every show.
Well, in the past, I guess 20 years now, it's been every show. It didn't happen every show in the 80s. I'm sure it happened here and there. But like the first time, whether it was Vince or Stephanie, or whoever was in charge, or Bischoff or whatever, the first time somebody says, all right, I'm putting you guys in a match and it'll be right now. And I'm sure everyone thought, right now? Oh, chaos. Havoc is reigning. What's going on? And it was probably pretty cool. After that, you start to realize when they do it every show, you realize you had a week to put the show together and you didn't bother to put together a main event until someone came out to cut a promo.
Yeah. Well, back in the old days, I mean, if something happened that necessitated changing the format of the show, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because they wanted you to pretend as a fan that you were watching a real sporting event.
Yes.
That's why there was always, occasionally, the main event would end early and a standby match would start with TV time remaining.
Yes.
Because they wanted to convince you that, well, we had a plan.
Yes.
In case the main event...
We are competent.
Exactly. Like, you never know when the main event might end before the top of the hour, so we always have a standby match to go after the main event. Now it's like a weekly skit where somebody talks, and then a bunch of dudes come out, and they talk, supposedly unplanned, even though it's as scripted and formatted as... Anyway, it was weird.
There was an awful Booker T hype video. I know I say this a lot, but they were owned by one of the world's great media conglomerates, and this is the best they could do.
Yes, that's WCW.
Yeah. Ultimo Dragon versus Saturn. So
This was no good.
there were some cool suplexes. There were some cool kick combos. And in between, there'd be 2 or 3 minutes of nothing. Just nothing. There were some boring chants. Dragon kept going for the Dragon Sleeper. He gets it on a third try. In fact, let me go back. 90% of this match was Saturn holding Ultimo Dragon, having him on the ground in a hold. And Dragon would do some cool kicks once in a while. And he makes his comeback, and he finally hits his finisher on the third try. And as soon as he hits it, Saturn just muscles him over and cradles him for the win. Could they have made Dragon a bigger geek here?
Oh, they found a lot of ways to make a lot of guys geeks. To answer your question.
That was that. They showed a match from Thunder of DDP wrestling Benoit when Raven and the Flock ran in and attacked them both. And all I can say about this is, were they outside in a thick fog? There's a cloud throughout the entire ring here. And back on Nitro, it was supposed to be Raven versus Booker T. Raven cuts a promo saying, Booker, your TV title belongs to Saturn. You should go hand it to him right now. But since you won't, guys, get him. And the Flock attacked. And eventually, Booker fought them off for a while, got overwhelmed. And Raven dropped him with the DDT. Saturn then appeared, and he put Booker in the rings of Saturn, and the Flock tormented him for a while.
Couldn't believe the heat that Raven got here. For a total mid-card nothing segment, the people were going nuts chanting Raven sucks.
That's true. Randy Savage hype video was much better than the Booker T hype video.
Got a lot of hype videos now. They gone to 3 hours.
That's
There's
right.
a lot to hype.
A lot to hype. Randy Savage versus Hollywood Hogan.
This match was really good.
This was. I forgetting what happened here almost 20 years ago. I was expecting all this to be a setup and a trap for Luger or Sting, whatever. But no, Savage and Hogan hated each other and wanted to fight. So Savage jumped him in the aisle, ran wild for a minute or two. And then Hogan cut him off with a low blow, and Savage sold for about 10 straight minutes. Savage goes for the axe handle to the floor, and his head and face hit the guardrail. I have seen Savage hit 1,000 axe handles to the floor and probably missed 100 or more. I have never seen him react to hitting the guardrail like this, probably because he really hit the guardrail fucking hard.
Dude, this guy was out of his mind, and he pulled a really good match out of Hulk Hogan. He worked his ass off. He had Hogan working his ass off. And you know what? All of the announcers on commentary all played David Crockett in his prime. They were super into this match, and it made the whole thing better.
So both guys tried to use a chair but failed. Savage eventually hits the big elbow, but the NWO hits the ring and lays into him. And they hold him so Hogan can hit a chair shot right to the head. They leave him lying and make their exit, but Randy Savage is nuts, and so he charges up the rail and tackles Hogan right as they go to break. As promised, Lex Luger comes out and he's pissed. And Shivani outright says, I have no idea what's about to happen here. And Elizabeth comes out to talk to him, but Luger says, nope, not falling for that again. I want Randy Savage right now. And so Randy Savage jumped him from behind, hit like 2 moves, and Lex was dead. He had like 2 punches and a body slam. And he goes up for the big elbow, and Sting runs out and attacks Savage.
Man, when Savage ran in through the crowd, Tony Schiavone goes, he's a crazy man. I was like, God damn, you're right.
Well, he is.
The guy's nuts.
He absolutely is. But I was still thinking, so Savage just went 10 minutes with Hulk Hogan, and now Lex needs help fighting him off after 2 punches and a body slam? Lex did not come off strong here.
Caught him unaware.
So Sting runs out. He's going after Savage, beating him up. Lex has not moved in like 2 minutes, and Sting grabs Savage for the death drop, and looks behind him and realizes, if I hit this move, I'll land on Lex. So he says, Lex, move. At this point, Lex just gets up. Just gets up and walks away. So they drop Savage on his head, and then the NWO comes out and surrounds the ring. So there's dead Savage, Sting and Luger standing on either side of him ready to fight, and the NWO are on the ring, and they're trying to make peace, saying, hey, we hate Savage as much as you do. And then, I ain't making this up, a giant net fell from the ceiling.
fucking net.
I can't say it with a straight face either.
Net.
A giant net fell from the ceiling.
Yeah, like a cartoon.
Like Batman.
A fucking net fell from the ceiling. I howled with laughter. And then the NWO starts stomping on the guys. And I look at the background, and Scott Hall is howling with laughter. Probably because he realizes a goddamn net just fell from the ceiling, and these men are trapped under a net.
Under a net.
And then later on in the show's going off the air. I'll just cut to the end. And Tony says, Thursday, we'll give you an update on the condition of Sting. I was like, condition of Sting? What the fuck happened on this show? I actually had to go back because I'd been laughing so hard about the net that I didn't even realize who the net even fell on. I wasn't even paying attention. I was fixated on the net. Like, they dropped a fucking net on guys. And then I'm thinking, hold on a second. The net fell on Luger, Savage, and Sting, right?
Yeah.
And they all got stomped on?
Yeah.
And the only one that anybody cares about is Sting?
Apparently.
That's not very nice.
No.
That's a Sting. What's this net made of metal?
So apparently at some point in the week prior, Hogan turns to Bischoff and says, "I got an idea, brother." And by the way, this works in storyline and in real life as well. It's ridiculous either way.
Oh, yeah. I've been watching those old Batman shows.
Can you get a net? That'd be great.
Come on, it's Turner. Of course we can get a fucking net.
Now, there's still more weirdness. When they go to break, the NWO is still stomping on these guys in a net. They go to commercial, come back, the Nitro girls are just dancing.
Yeah.
Where'd the net go?
Well,
What happened?
they got him out of there. They probably just rolled him all up in the net and dragged it to the back.
Oh, I wish I could have seen that.
Maybe they pulled the net back to the ceiling with a minute.
Outsiders came out for a promo. It went forever. Announcer said Sting had suffered, quote, some sort of injury.
Hall did his survey. WCW got booed like crazy.
Yes, they did.
Louder than ever.
So it's the Outsiders against the Steiners. So the whole gimmick has been, as of late, Scott has been going the whole way and refusing to tag Rick in. So Rick says, no. I'm starting this time, brother. So he starts, he wrestles for a minute, and he tags out.
You dumb shit.
The other great part here is they're beating Scott up, and Nash boots him in the stomach, and he bends over, and Nash just grabs his head, and everyone goes, "It's the powerbomb!" And they jump up out of their seat, and Nash looks around at them, laughs, and lets go of his head. That's all he had to do. So, let's see what happens.
Scott gets this power bomb on Scott Hall.
Yes.
And it's his big chance to make the tag again, which they've been building up for weeks and weeks. And Rick's like, tag me! And Ted DiBiase's like, tag him! And Scott Steiner says, I got him.
Yeah.
And right as he says it, Hall shoves him. He bashes into his brother on accident. The referee counts this as a fucking tag. Rick comes off the top, hits the Bulldog, and gets the pin and the titles. Now, I thought the story was going to be that Scott kept winning all the matches by himself, and finally, when the titles were on the line, it would bite him in the ass, and he'd get pinned, they'd lose, and they'd break up. But they didn't do that. The story was he was forced to accidentally tag, and then his brother won the titles for him. This made Scott very angry. But at the end of the show, he did hug his brother and celebrate with all of the belts.
And the only two things you're glossing over are specifically at the finish, after Rick has been accidentally tagged in, Scott Hall grabs Scott Steiner and goes for the outsider's edge, but Rick comes off with the Bulldog and he lands the pile just collapses. 3 men falling on top of each other, which also explains why Scott Steiner was pissed. But then, as you noted, DiBiase is out there celebrating with the Steiners, and it suddenly occurred to me, DiBiase's still employed. He's on a really nice paycheck to do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know this.
Along with 268 other people.
I know there are other guys making money who didn't even show up, but yeah.
This was a hell of a gig there in the
Absolutely,
90s.
man.
Show was so much better than last week. Big thumbs up for Nitro. A lot of good wrestling. Hulk Hogan even wrestled on TV and it was good. Mm-hmm. How more can you ask for? All right, let's talk about Nitro. Also a good show. Did they not air Larry Zbyszko's comments about Louis Piccoli? Did I somehow miss them?
Oh, there were comments.
Where? When?
It was right after the opening monologue by Hogan. We'll get to that in a second. Hollywood Hogan and Eric Bischoff came out to start the show.
Well, first they had a 3-bell salute for Louis.
That's correct.
3 bells. Then they had thunder clips, of all things, where they announced that Savage and Hogan versus Luger and Sting was going to be signed for the main event to solve this problem they've all been having. Mm-hmm. Hogan had wanted an apology from Savage, and Savage very sincerely apologized and then punched him and punched Eric. Randy Savage was awesome. And next thing you know, the NWO came out.
Right.
So where's Larry's thing?
It's coming up, Brian.
How did I miss this?
Well, it wasn't spotlighted by any means. But we'll get to it in just a second. NWO comes out. Hogan threatens Bret Hart. He says he's going to throw around as much money as possible to get Nick Patrick to be the official referee for his match against Sting at Super Bowl 8. He then talks about Savage.
He says, and I quote, that Randy Savage is a dummy and he's going to kick his butt.
Yeah.
Man. It's fighting words.
He says he plans to beat up Sting and Lex Luger all by himself. He isn't going to need Savage there. They showed George Steinbrenner in the audience. And here, Tony asked Larry Zbyszko to share some thoughts on Louis Spicolli.
Well, what'd he say? I didn't hear it.
Larry says, out of respect to the family, he's just going to let it go.
That's right. Nice.
What a jackass.
You know, I may have been ranting in my notes about the opening segment and missed it. Because going back to that NWO segment, before Larry made his comments here, Hogan is going to be facing Sting, right?
At Super Brawl, yes.
So Hogan calls out Savage.
Right.
And they're going to have a tag match later.
Correct. Against Luger and Sting.
So Savage comes out and he vows to beat up Luger and Sting all by himself, and then he wants Hogan. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so the whole point of all of this is, the storyline here is that Sting, who we spent all of 1997 building up to win the world title, and who now is going to have a match with Hulk Hogan for the title at the next pay-per-view, as well as Lex Luger, who was the first guy to beat Hulk Hogan for the title, and then quickly lost it. These two men are afterthoughts.
Mm-hmm.
In the whole storyline with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage.
Right.
That's bullshit.
No baby faces on this show, Brian. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Let's talk about Goldberg and Hugh Morris.
It's a rematch from Goldberg's either first or second match last September.
Something like that.
Okay. This went 56 seconds. Goldberg hit a spear, and you'll never guess, but he pinned him after the jackhammer.
Show did.
Is there anything else to say about this?
Let's talk about Hall and Nash and the commentators. They come out and they say, we want the Steiners tonight for the tag team titles.
Correct.
And Tony says, well, far be it from me to interrupt, but you know you've got a match with them at Super Brawl. And Nash says, yeah, well, we want it tonight. Kevin Nash, this was such a horrible promo. Like, if it were anybody else and Kevin Nash was watching on the monitor, he would convince Bischoff to never let this person cut a promo on television ever again. He was so fucking terrible. And boy, I'm going to take it out on him later. All my anger towards FedEx.
You know, sometimes when you're in awe of a person, you look past their faults.
In awe? Who's in awe of Kevin Nash?
Eric Bischoff. He
That's
loved this man.
Sickening.
Isn't it?
You know what? Speaking of sickening, Nash is lucky because before his match, I saw Sick Boy against Mark Starr. God bless this guy. He was so horrible.
Here's what I wrote about this match. Sick Boy won with a pedigree in 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
Dude. Sick Boy. You know how you always hear people talk about the power plant, and it's always like, God, who the hell came out of the power plant? Goldberg? Is there anybody else? Well, here's somebody else. Sick Boy came straight out of the power plant. I'm sure the dude had great cardio. I'm sure this guy could do rope drills like nobody's business.
He was in shape.
He could not work a lick. He couldn't hit the ropes. He did the gimmick where you try and hit the ropes, but you miss the top rope and your head snaps underneath.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
God-awful pedigree. Like, everything he did was terrible in this match. God bless him. I'm sure he's a great fella. I hope he had a wonderful Valentine's Day with his family.
Uh-huh.
But boy, was he terrible.
Looks a little bit like Adam Cole.
Adam Cole? What are you talking about?
Well, that's what he kind of looked like
Give me
to
a break. Now let's talk about Hall and Nash.
In the face, not in the work.
I'm going to keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
Hall and Nash are the top heels in the tag team division and two of the top heels on the show.
Correct.
They come out, and Hall does a survey bearing WCW, and everybody chants along. And they cheer. Of course, Hall, he has no problem selling for these guys. Not Nash.
Wrestling public enemy, by the way. I don't know if you got that in.
Hall gets in there. He's bumping for Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock. Bumping all over for him. Nash gets in, just starts booting them. They all fall down. Finally, Nash grabs Rocco, power bombs him over the top rope through Grunge and a table. Of course, the powerbomb is banned, and every time the guy does a powerbomb, he's fined $50,000. So he's Stone Cold Steve Austin here. Powerbombs this guy over the top. So not only are you powerbombing a guy with an illegal move, over the top rope, breaking a table, and winning. I guess he didn't win. They were DQ'd or whatever. But point of this is, the place goes absolutely nuts for the guy. Now, I don't want to hear the Stephanie McMahon bullshit about how he's only doing what he was told to do. If you're a low-card geek, then when someone tells you what to do, you do it.
Yeah.
But when you're a top guy, or when you're the boss's daughter, and someone tells you something to do and it's stupid, you say, no! I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. That hurts the talent. It's a stupid storyline. But no, Nash, getting himself over.
Oh, yeah. And when he did this powerbomb on Rocco, you could see the fear in Rocco's eyes as his head was pointed straight down for the table. He grabbed the top rope in fear, and thank God he was able to crane his neck in such a way that he didn't drop head first down into Johnny Grunge onto the table. Anyway, they cuffed Nash after the match and led him away, and he screamed, Attica, Attica, over and over again.
Listen, I'm glad the guy made a lot of money, but Kevin Nash has got to be the most overrated performer ever in the history of this business. I can't think of anybody that comes close.
We then had Mike Enos making his triumphant return against Barry Horowitz.
Well, first we had Nick Patrick and Gene. Nick Patrick still can referee.
I missed that. I apologize.
Conspiracy says, compares himself to Bill Clinton, who, I swear to God, he claimed the president was defamed and talked about fake news and media misinformation.
How ironic.
I swear to God. And then we had Mike Enos and Barry Horowitz. Barry, horrible. It's terrible here.
Mike Enos, why did they bring this guy back?
What's wrong with Mike Enos?
He's not very good.
I'm watching Kevin Nash. What the fuck's wrong with Mike Enos?
Enos won with a power slam in a minute 50. Ridiculous.
Why? It was Barry Horowitz. Well, you wanted to go longer?
Don't you remember Barry from the WWF back in the day? He patted himself on the back and actually had a hand.
He was a jobber.
Yeah.
And then he got a what could I describe him as? He got a Zack Ryder push for a short period of time.
He's Jinder Mahal.
And then was back.
Next up, we had Yuji Nagata.
No, Mongo and Bulldog got into a brawl backstage, which was absolutely horrible, but hilarious.
Yeah, this involved coffee.
Bulldog's backstage with the coffee. Mongo walks up, calls him a mongrel, because he's the Bulldog.
I get it.
They got into a brawl, and coffee went flying, and it was hideous, but I loved it.
I see why I didn't write it down. Next up, we had Yuji Nagata versus La Parka. Now, apparently, La Parka is in some kind of a feud with the Disco Inferno over dancing.
Yes, that's correct.
The announcers referred to La Parka as the chairman of the WCW because he hits people with a chair.
Yeah, the chairman.
Anyway, they had an okay match until Disco interfered, dropped Laparca with a chair shot behind the ref's back. Then Yuji slapped on the Nagata lock and won the match in 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
The Nagata lock, cooler than the Fearless lock, might add.
Okay. We then get word that Bret Hart is in the building.
Oh, man.
Next up, we had the Ultimo Dragon versus Kidman.
So they announced that Nash, after just a few weeks, has been fined $200,000 for powerbombing, folks.
Correct.
Thought, how the fuck did they go out of business? That's impossible. They lost even more money than I thought.
He's actually costing himself more money than WCW is paying him at this point.
It's crazy.
Anyway, Kidman got the heat with a hot shot. Kidman played heel this entire match, choking and cheating and whatnot. Dragon fired up and delivered his kick combo. Turned into a pretty nice match with back and forth action. Kidman avoiding the sleeper at all costs. Avoided it once, twice, and then the Dragon countered a suplex and was finally able to grab the Dragon sleeper and tap him out. 6 minutes and 52 seconds in a pretty good little match.
This was a very good match. Kidman has improved dramatically. Dragon is awesome. Had a very fun little match here. This was 2 thumbs up.
This was a good match, yes. Only to be outshined later. We then had Mean Gene. He brought out U.S. champion Diamond Dallas Page. Page says the only way he can get Chris Benoit at his best for Super Bowl VIII is if he and Benoit actually take out Raven and Perry Saturn because they had jumped them on Thunder the week before. He said that match is coming your way this Thursday, that match being Benoit and DDP against Perry and Raven. Raven seems to have an issue with this, and he comes into the ring. Saturn shows up as well, but before they can jump DDP, Benoit slid into the ring and scared them off. They retreated, as would any normal man.
All right, let's talk about the greatest match of all time.
I love this match with all my heart, Bryan Alvarez.
Yeah, you should. Meng versus Barbarian. This was set up on Thunder. The entire angle was Meng just attacked the Barbarian because he's a savage. That's what I got out of it.
Okay.
There was no turn.
No.
Meng went crazy, and Jimmy Hart tried to pull him off, and he wouldn't stop. And then Barbarian came out, trying to pull him off, and Meng responded by attacking him.
Meng going crazy.
Because he's a savage.
Meng going crazy, by the way. Very short trip.
They had the wildest, ugliest fight you ever saw. They were working... I mean, they were so blown up
Yeah.
about 2 minutes in. But, of course, they just kept going. They fought through their utter exhaustion. They kept pawing at each other. Meng was doing the sumo slaps. They were brawling on the mat and standing up and hitting each other and whacking each other. Finally, Jimmy Hart hits the ring. He's got to put a stop to this. He's got a wooden chair. Waffles Meng with it. It's supposed to break over the dude's head, but it doesn't. So he swings it again, and this time it does break over his head. Meng doesn't sell it. He puts the Tongan death grip on Jimmy. Barbarian responds by kicking Meng, kicks him again, and again, and after the 4th kick, he pins him. What is wrong with this business that we don't have matches like this anymore? There was no, hey, we're going to start with a lockup, and then we're going to roll around on the mat in the lockup, and then the heel's going to get the heat, and then the babyface is going to make a comeback. Then we're going to trade. There was none of that bullshit. It was 2 dudes had a fight, and one guy got kicked in the head 4 times and lost. And it was over in 4 minutes. They didn't go too long, that's for goddamn sure. It was beautiful. It was awesome. Let me tell you something.
Okay.
Because I'm in a mood today.
I know.
What match was it? There was a women's match on the pay-per-view Sunday. May have been Becky and Mickey.
Okay. The opener.
It's always the women that do this now. I don't know why. But, hey, let's lock up, and then we'll somehow get to our stomachs while still locked up.
Yes.
And then we'll log roll while in a lockup, and we'll end up on the floor, and we'll still be locked up.
Correct.
Now, somebody must have done this in some match for the first time, and like no one had ever seen it before, and they thought it was so cool, and now everybody wants to do it, or it gets repeated. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, if you've never engaged in fisticuffs and or physical confrontation before, it probably looks cool. But you know what a goddamn lockup is? You tie up with the person so you can grab a hold.
Right.
Why the fuck would you both end up on the mat and still be tied up? And then roll like two logs and not let go and roll out of the ring and continue tying up. It's preposterous. I hate that spot.
I wrestled in high school, and I can tell you, I never saw that.
No, it would never happen. It's beyond ridiculous.
Yeah, this Ming Barbarian match, I think I said it. I said everything I needed to say. 0 punches pulled and 0 F's given.
It's great.
It was a great match. We then had what was supposed to be Perry Saturn versus the Disco Inferno. During Disco's entrance, La Parka came out and waffled him in the back with a chair all the way down the aisle. Rick Martel then sprints down the ring and said he was there to replace the Disco Inferno. And Tony reminds the audience that he has a match tonight.
Yeah, why did this dumbass do this? Another dumb babyface. You have a U.S. title or a TV title or whatever the damn belt Booker T has. There's too many of them.
It's TV title.
And so, like, before you have that match later, you run down to replace Disco Inferno in a match with Saturn? What?
Got me, dude.
So he lost. When Saturn managed to mess up his own Rings of Saturn. How you mess up your own finish? I don't know. That's a tough one. But he did.
We then had Kurt Hennig versus Bobby Eaton. And I was so looking forward to this match, thinking Bobby Eaton, one half of the legendary Midnight Express, the best puncher in all of wrestling, and Kurt Hennig, one of the greatest workers of our all time.
It was all right.
It wasn't good, Brian.
Come on, it was all right. I know Eaton went up heavy for the perfect plex, which is very difficult to miss time. And I think Hennig apologized to him afterwards, so maybe it was Kurt's fault.
It was very sad. This match went 2 minutes and 46 seconds, and Bobby got pinned with a Hennig plex and looked bad doing it. There was nothing to it. We then had WCW Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers, versus my favorite team, Vicious and Delicious.
Oh, give me a break. These two guys are fine. So what the hell? The Steiners are back on the same page again.
Kinda, yeah.
All is fine in the world. Rick makes comeback. NWO hits the ring for the DQ. Mm-hmm. That's our follow-up for all of those weeks of Rick and Scott not getting along.
Well, this week, Rick tagged in Scott on numerous occasions, but Scott let Rick do a lot of the heavy lifting. He didn't do much when he got in other words. Then when the NWO actually attacked, they never laid a hand on Scott Steiner. Foreshadowing. Another stupid DQ finish, by the way. They showed a recap from 3 weeks ago on Thunder when Saturn attacked Rick Martel and threw him through a glass door backstage. Bringing us to the WCW World Television Title Champion Booker T versus Rick Martel.
So weird. Martel starts off, he attacks him before the bell, starts stomping a mud hole in him.
Yes.
Acting like a heel. Then he starts selling for a while. Then he starts a babyface comeback, but then it turns out it's not a babyface comeback, it's the Heat. And then Booker made a babyface comeback. Maybe they were trying to have a babyface match, I don't know.
I don't think so.
Saturn.
Martel was poking him in the eye, throwing him into the guardrail. This is not what a babyface does, Brian.
Saturn jumps up on the apron, waffles Martel. Booker comes flying in with a kick. He hits Saturn. I think he was aiming for Martel. It's not made clear.
Right.
Crotches the ropes. Martel puts him in a crab, wins the TV title. Rarely have I seen a match that was simultaneously pretty good and also pretty bad. It was very impressive that they managed to pull that off in a single match.
how did you think Martel was a babyface here when he was doing all these dirty, underhanded tactics and he jumped Booker T before the bell?
Well, he's been a babyface since he came back, and he was a babyface in the match earlier in the evening.
That's a fair point, Brian.
That's a pretty fucking good point if I do say so myself.
Okay.
Now, later they announce that they are changing the pay-per-view match. It is now Rick Martel, Booker T, and Saturn in a three-way.
Correct. No.
It's three-way.
No.
What do you mean, no?
Here's what it is. Gene interviewed JJ to get clarification on the television title match scheduled for Super Brawl. Dylan decides the new TV champion Rick Martel and Booker T will have a rematch, and the winner will wrestle Perry Saturn.
No. I don't care what he said. That's not what happened. It was a three-way.
Okay.
He must have fucked it up then. Because they have a three-way at the pay-per-view, and that's the match where Rick Martel fucks his leg up.
Okay.
And so Booker and Saturn finish the match, and they do the title change. And that was the beginning and the end of Rick Martel's career. He had one match after that and hurt himself again, and he was retired.
That's not what they said, though.
Well,
They must have
it's
changed.
Nitro.
They
Give
must
me a
have
break.
changed something on the fly. Anyway, between all that, we had Gene Okerlund. He brought out Bret Hart. Bret said that Hollywood Hogan is making up lies about him because he's scared. He says Hogan doesn't need to call Bret's name any more than twice for him to meet him face to face. Bret says Hogan has been hiding from him for years, and it's time to step up to the plate.
So then,
Yes.
the crowd is buzzing. At first I thought there was a fight in the crowd, but instead a man entered the ring. And of course, I have done 2 editions of The Death of WCW as well as an audiobook. I must now write the book again
You forgot something?
to point out the real turning point in the Monday Night Wars when somebody thought it'd be a fucking bright idea to raid the DOA.
Yeah.
Excuse me, they raided Crush?
Sure.
They raided Crush. Crush shows up, pretends he's Bret's friend. It's a swerve. The NWO attacks. Bryan Adams, Crush, the newest member of the NWO. Ric Flair makes the save. At least the good news is Bret and Flair are back on TV now. Mm-hmm. But oh my God, they raided the DOA. Who's next? The Headbangers?
That never happens.
Think about that.
I don't want to. They got enough useless talent in this business on this side of the show. Okay. Then up next, after the JJ debacle thing that we just discussed, my favorite match of this week that I watched, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko.
Holy shit, what a match.
This tore down the house. Benoit and Guerrero began, and immediately, best thing I saw all time, all my life. Babyface is firmly in control. They did a great spot where Guerrero tried to slide under Benoit's legs, but Benoit reached between his legs and grabbed Eddie by the hair, pulled him through his legs, wrapped his arms around his waist, and hit a deadlift German. It was awesome. We then had Guerrero reversing a suplex, and he hit a brainbuster on Malenko. Went up top, hit the frog splash, and as he came down, Benoit flew through the air and hit Eddie with a headbutt as he was trying to pin Malenko. Great spot. Jericho came flying with a missile dropkick. He hooked on the Lion Tamer. Guerrero wiped out Benoit with a flying dive from the top rope to the floor. Meanwhile, Malenko and Guerrero are reversing each other's pin attempt until Malenko rolls through and slapped on the Texas Cloverleaf for the immediate tap out. This match was a thing of beauty.
This match was awesome. I have nothing to add. Obviously, Benoit and Eddie, 2 of the greatest workers ever in the history of pro wrestling. It was evident 19 years ago. It's evident today. Those 2 are better than anybody in wrestling today.
Absolutely.
Find me somebody who is better than Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero in 1998. A better worker. Find me someone. I love Okada. Love Omega. Love Tanahashi. Love Rollins and Roman Reigns.
He's pretty good.
all these great workers today, but nobody is as good as these two guys. And because of a lot of different reasons, nobody ever will be again. Well, at least for a while. Everything comes around.
And then things got weird. Right before the main event, Eric Bischoff comes out all by himself and says Hollywood is running late.
Let's talk about the important thing for this match.
He said he had to write $50,000 in checks to cover Kevin Nash. What?
Well, because Nash can't afford it, so Hogan promised to pay his fines. Hogan's out there writing checks. Yeah, he's got to get Nash out of jail.
He's running late, and Eric had to go out there and stall.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the important thing here.
Okay.
It's Hogan and Savage against Luger and Sting. They fly in Michael Buffer.
Yeah.
This guy's got nothing to do on a good day.
Except for cash checks.
He says, hey, let's get ready to rumble. This man is from the four corners of the earth. He does his usual bullshit, but not tonight. Not tonight. He says, let's get ready to rumble. Guys start coming down to the ring. He's fixing to do his big-ass introduction that he gets paid so much money for. And a fucking brawl starts in the aisle.
Yeah.
So, Michael Buffer got flown all the way to wherever the hell they were here tonight. The State Fair.
No, they were in Tampa, Florida at the Steinbrenner Events Center.
Whatever. He gets in the middle of the ring. He says, let's get ready to rumble. And that's all he has to do because a fight starts. And then he just says, let the match begin. And he's out of here.
And a cash register rang and he went.
God damn, what a life.
Yeah, so Hogan and Savage jumped Luger and Sting at the entrance. Attacked him from behind. They take turns fighting in the ring and outside the ring. Brawl ensues. Finally, it breaks down into a tag match. Hogan is ignoring Savage on the outside as he's selling, gabbing with Bischoff, whatever. Finally, Randy Savage just slaps Hogan in the back for the quote-unquote tag. Hogan comes in. He hits a running clothesline, series of elbow drops, misses a leg drop. Lex makes a hot tag to Sting. Sting in there hits Hogan with a pair of Stinger splashes. Puts Hogan in the Scorpion Deathlock. Luger then grabs Savage as he's in the ring. Puts Savage in the torture rack. And then you'll never guess what happened, Brian.
All these assholes hit the ring for the DQ. And then the good guys clear the ring. Listen, let me tell you something, everybody. Let me tell you something. Now, granted, 1997 was a great year. 1997, there was a lot of great stuff in WWF and WCW.
Sure.
But now it's 1998. And right now, WWF in 1998, 19 years ago this week, is absolutely horrible. And Nitro is getting worse by the week. And in the case of Nitro, it continues to get worse and then gets much, much worse.
Ooh.
WWF, at least, the main event scene starts to get better.
Right.
But apparently the mid-card ain't getting better for a while.
No.
Or the low card. It's funny because the biggest problem with professional wrestling today, it's not the crowd, it's not the length of Raw, although those are both problems. This company today, WWE, they need a Steve Austin or a Rock.
You're absolutely right.
Or a Hulk Hogan in the NWO. But my point is, if they had one guy that was like the new Stone Cold Steve Austin, I mean, we would have such a fucking boom period.
Yep.
Because I realize it's Mania season, but WWE right now is so much better than Raw and Nitro 19 years ago this week.
Right.
It's not even funny. It's not even a comparison. It's so much better. Yeah, the show's too long. Yeah, they're building around Roman Reigns. Yeah, there's a problem here and there. Yeah, some old guys have to come back to get people excited. But the shows themselves are so much better than these old Raw and Nitros right now. They just don't have a guy. And John Cena's on his way out more so than ever. So there's going to be doldrums for a while. But if they can find one guy, not 5 guys, not 3 guys, not even 2 guys, if they can find one guy that they can get over to the masses, then we're all going to enjoy a great period of wrestling. Because goddamn, this is the fucking boom period we're talking about every week. It's horrible.
It's not good.
Holy smokes. But they had stars, and so it was a major big-time period.
The only good thing about this, after the DQ finish with the NWO, Bret Hart and Ric Flair hit the ring, and the babyfaces stood tall in the ring. And
it's still the same old thing every week, though.
yeah, it's going to be back to the same old next week. It doesn't matter if the heels stand tall or the babyfaces stand tall.
Let's talk about this Nitro.
Deep breath. Okay.
Hey, it started out great.
Nitro number 128, also February 23rd, 1998. So at Super Brawl the night before, Scott Steiner had done the big turn and turned on his brother Rick. So we got reactions from DDP, Booker T, Ric Flair, and Bret Hart talking about how sad and tragic this was. The best of them all was Bret, who noted nobody could understand this situation better than him. And it was going to hurt a lot of people, and that's a real shame. Because Bret had been through a feud with his brother before.
That's right.
So it made sense. The announcers, meanwhile, they're not happy that Scott Steiner turned on his brother, but they are happy that Sting has beaten Hulk Hogan at Super Brawl to once again be the undisputed champion.
That's right. He's the champion again after all this rigmarole. After they totally took all possible steam off of Sting. Now he's the champion.
Yep.
Way to go.
They cut him off at the pass over and over and over again. So Gene tries to interview Rick Steiner backstage.
It seriously is like WWE nowadays, where they beat a guy and beat a guy and beat a guy and beat a guy and beat a guy. Then they give him the title. And then they're like, I can't figure out why he's not over.
Yeah.
Why don't we have a new John Cena?
Rick Steiner had nothing to say. So Lex Luger comes out. Then the NWO music plays. Then Lex cuts a promo. Live TV. He begins by congratulating his buddy Sting on his championship win. But he is more upset. That is Rick Steiner, who he called his best friend, is devastated about what happened last night. So for 10 years, I've been training and traveling all over the world with the Steiners. He knows him very well, and he wants to beat some sense into Scott. So he challenges Scott to a fight. Then there's like a minute of dead TV as Lex is posing for the fans, the announcers are just killing time, and finally the NWO music plays again. And out comes Kurt Hennig. Kurt and Lex wrestle for a minute or two, and then Scott Steiner runs into the crowd, debuting the big Papa Pump look with the short blonde hair and the sunglasses. And he tried to do some stuff with the sunglasses and cut his own face. Very big Papa Pump thing to do.
I think it happened when he did that side suplex to Lex.
When he suplexed Lex onto his own forehead.
Let's talk about this suplex. He grabs Lex for an exploder.
Right.
You guys know what an airplane is?
Sure.
Okay, let me explain for those that don't. So it's got these two wings, right? And you know what banking means?
Yeah.
I'm doing the thing with my hand right now. So look, if an airplane's going to turn, one side goes up and the other side goes down, and it banks, okay? Papa Pump is going to suplex Luger, and his legs are going up. All the fucking guy has to do is bring his head down, and he'll flip over.
Right.
But his legs go up, and Luger's like, I will not lower my upper body. And he keeps it stable, and he lands right in his fucking face.
Yeah.
I thought he was dead.
I have not seen the incident where Kurt Angle originally broke his neck, but I've read about it from his own book, where he said he was being taken over and attempted to block it with his face.
Bad idea.
This is what happened to Lex Luger here. So, let's see. Lex survived. He hits the bionic elbow and the power slam. Then Buff Bagwell runs out and attacks him. Hennig and Rude disappeared. Rick Steiner appears, lays out Bagwell, but before he can do anything to Scott, the rest of the NWO comes out, including Bryan Adams, who apparently was there last week.
And the Barbarian in a dress shirt.
Well, he came out later, but yes.
I'm ahead of myself.
The NWO comes out.
This is very important.
Sting descends from the ceiling and chases the NWO away. Only at this point, only when the danger is clear, do the troops come in. So, way to go, WCW guys. Way to save the day. What perfect timing. And yes, Barbarian is wearing a shirt and tie.
You know, we always talk about how, isn't it so weird that all of these shows we talk about from dozens of years ago sometimes, they all tie together. I don't know what show it was, but I'm positive the first day that Samoa Joe came out in a suit to do the contract signing, I did not want to see Joe in that suit. I know on one of these shows I mentioned, can you imagine Meng or the Barbarian coming out in a suit? Here's the Barbarian in a dress shirt and a tie. Gimmick dead. He ain't a barbarian. He's a fella that
He's
plays a
fashion
barbarian.
model.
It's ridiculous.
By the way, Vinny, last week we reviewed Meng versus the Barbarian.
Dude, you got to
remember
go
you talking
back.
about that.
You must go back and watch this
You've
match.
got to see this.
Actually, speaking of things I missed, on Raw, during the Road Warriors video, there was a clip of them doing the Doomsday Device with the Rock and Roll Express. Was that on the show I missed?
I don't think so.
Maybe it was a post-match thing or something.
It might have happened in the
I-
NWA.
I just remember thinking, I can't believe these two teams never wrestled, and then they're in every segment each week, still never wrestling.
That's true.
So,
All I know is Benoit and Raven had a match on this show that I'm afraid was better than Ming versus Barbarian. But aside from that match, nothing was better than Ming and Barbarian last week.
okay.
It was the best match.
Well, let's start with what was not the best match.
Has there ever been a worse wrestler than Hammer?
Yes.
Besides the obvious we talked about of late.
He was the worst wrestler on this show.
Why did they wear the exact same...
That was the other thing I thought of. Two big, bleach blonde, clumsy dudes in jeans and black tops out there wrestling.
Yes, it was like the...
It was like Hammer and his little brother.
Right. Yeah, it was eerie.
And
Well,
neither
the little brother won.
neither of these guys is terribly graceful. They were clunking and lumbering all over the place. And Page eventually won with the Diamond Cutter
And got his way into the Hall of Fame.
for this match. I hope he thanks Hammer. The flock attacked. Benoit made the save. A limousine arrived. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff step out, but they see the camera, and they tell whoever's in the back seat, "Stay here, brother." Now, as I read these words out loud here, I thought, hey, we never found out who was in the limo. And then I thought, wait, yes, we did. It was just so lame, I forgot.
We sure did.
It was so lame, I forgot it was the reveal.
It was so lame, the announcers didn't know who it was.
No. So Bischoff and Hogan made the long walk down to the ring. Along the way, they walked through a pile of random soda bottles that was laying in the middle of the walkway. Vincent ran up and whispered in their ear, and then they were really mad. So they get to the ring for a promo. Eric Bischoff, the guy in his late 40s by this point, I think. Maybe mid-40s.
43.
Mid-40s. Wearing the backwards baseball cap like a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Goofy. So Hogan's promo was that he beat Sting again, just like he always had. It's all Nick Patrick's fault he didn't have the belt.
Hey, let's talk about the most important thing he said. He claimed that he got hit at the show
The crowbar.
by a 10-foot-long crowbar.
We need to watch this show now. I need to see Randy Savage hitting Hulk Hogan with a 10-foot crowbar.
So then, later, Tony Schiavone tries to claim that what Hogan actually meant was it was a 10-pound crowbar. But then Tony says, even that's ridiculous.
That's a huge crowbar.
God. So Hogan says Scott Hall's going to wrestle Sting tonight. He's finally getting his title shot after winning World War III. He's going to bring the belt home to the family. And then he challenges Savage to a cage match at Uncensored. And Savage appears in the crowd and says, okay. Kaz Hayashi versus Ultimo Dragon.
Forgot all about Kaz Hayashi until I watched this.
This match was okay, but I was not blown away by it. It was an acceptable professional wrestling match
That's fair.
with two professional wrestlers.
I was blown away by how skinny Kaz Hayashi was and how his gear emphasized that. When you have skinny legs and no ass, don't get the tights that go halfway up your torso. It just makes your ass look flatter. Now you can move. Did a bunch of cool flips and cool moves, and they did suplexes and kicks and dives, and it was all cool. And I did love the finish here. Dragon does the top rope Rana and the Dragon Sleeper, which is a combo that always wins. Kaz escapes the sleeper with like one kick. So Dragon's pissed off, kicks him a few more times, puts the sleeper back on, and wins.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yep, it was great.
We had an entire segment devoted to Gene Okerlund plugging the hotline. Didn't interview anyone, didn't plug anything, just call her now. Saw a bunch of total losers having a Nitro party.
Never gets old. It never gets old.
They've been doing this for like at least 6 months.
At least.
There's been one party where I thought, that looks cool, I'd like to go to that one.
You know what's funny is you got to think about how many videotapes they got sent in.
Jeez.
And they had so many to choose from. Like, I'm sure they had a guy whose job was to watch all these damn videos.
Oh, God.
And he was probably just told, can you find one that's cool? And this is the best they could come up with every week. Think about the ones they didn't put on television. That's what I'd like to see. If they could put those on the WWE Network in the vault. Nitro
The
Party.
worst Nitro parties?
No, just Nitro Party VHS. Just put the date on them and throw them in their entirety on the WWE Network. It'd be amazing.
Oh, God. So Benoit and Raven.
Why don't they use all my best ideas? I mean, come on. How much would that cost to digitize that and put it on the network?
I don't have an answer.
I'd watch it. I'd review it every week with Tom. Just pick a random Nitro Party video and watch it.
So as noted, Benoit, very good at pro wrestling.
Dude, Chris Benoit on this night, I was convinced was the best wrestler who's ever lived on the planet Earth. He just destroyed Raven. And to Raven's credit, boy, did that guy take a beating. He took one of those beatings where you could just tell he was counting down the minutes till this match was over. It just got chopped again and just beaten. It was great.
Just imagine what you had coming down the line. So, it's Raven's rules, so they're using chairs blatantly in front of the referee. A bunch of them over and over again.
This drove me crazy.
So, in the middle of all this, let's see. Benoit hits the rolling Germans. The ref counts 1, the ref counts 2, Raven kicks out, the ref holds up 2, the bell rings.
Right.
So I'm already confused. Was this a pinfall or not?
No, Kidman was supposed to hit the ring, but he was late, and Raven kicked out because he wasn't supposed to be pinned,
So-
and the ref called for the bell.
So
It was supposed to be a run-in DQ.
In this Raven's rules
They
match,
booked a DQ and a no DQ match.
Yes.
That is...
in this Ravens rules match, you
So I
can
wrote
hit
this
each other
book.
with chairs,
It's called The Death of WCW.
but you cannot run in.
This was the least of their problems. Yes, a DQ in a no DQ match.
So the flock attacks, Paige goes to make the save.
Benoit sent Kidman into orbit, and Kidman sold it so great.
The flock attacks one at a time, like any good martial arts villain. And yes, Benoit laid them out one at a time until finally getting overwhelmed, and it was a backdrop to the sky, as I recall. But finally, Paige makes the save, and in the melee, Benoit punches Paige one time. So now Paige doesn't know if he can trust Benoit. So it comes down to Benoit and Raven and Paige having a three-way brawl, which sounds really stupid. They pulled it off.
Yeah, and they're going to have a three-way match.
I'm sure they are. But just punch the guy to your right, punch the guy to the left, repeat, and somehow it all looked cool. You recall that in past Nitro reviews, I would report every time the Nitro girls came out and danced. And then after a while, I got old and I stopped.
We shouted you down.
Yes. The Nitro girls came out in this segment, and they probably danced, but I didn't notice. All I noticed was that they were bending over in leather pants over and over again.
That sounds like dancing to me.
I'm a fan of the leather.
I was on this night, that's for sure. It was great. Chris Jericho versus Lenny Lane.
This was not great.
So Jericho unmasked Hoovy the night before. This is a big moment. But at no point on the show did they show Hoovy without his mask on.
Nope.
They mentioned
No
his
clips, no nothing. Because back then, all you youngsters listening right now, you had to buy this match on pay-per-view. And if you missed it, there was a replay on Tuesday. So they didn't want you to see Hoovy's face because they thought maybe you'd buy the replay and spend $30 to see him get unmasked.
So Jericho does a promo wearing the mask. Says he is the face that 4 million people have tuned in to see. Says the name of the show will be changed to Monday Night Jericho. And I was watching this, all I could think was, this dude's still a main eventer. I mean, not that he was a main eventer here, but he was popular. And it's 2 decades later. This guy is amazing. Like, it really hit me watching this. Not like I haven't known for the past year. But yes, Chris Jericho's longevity is astounding.
Barely ever got hurt
Barely ever got hurt.
till he went on Dancing with the Stars.
So this match was not very good. Lenny Lane was not Chris Jericho. He hit what Tony Schiavone had no choice but to call a glancing blow of a dropkick. Jericho did all he could to make this guy look great. Lenny used a skull-crushing finale. He also does that move better than The Miz. And finally, Jericho hooked him in the Boston Crab and won. We had what had to be at least 3 straight minutes of dead TV. The announcers just killed time. Nothing happened. And then...
Oh, yeah. This was almost as good as the Ming versus Barbarian.
Yes.
But it was Ming and Barbarian versus some guy.
It's being Barbarian versus a small rabbit.
So listen, it was Rick Steiner versus Vincent. And Rick and Scott were a great team. two tough guys, two amateurs. But whenever you watch their matches, you always thought, well, Scott's the crazy one, the scary one. Rick is the friendly. I mean, he looks scary and all, but he's the friendly guy. He
was the goofy guy doing the barking dog
He
gimmick.
barks, he runs around, he does some moves.
Scott was always more serious.
Yeah, you'd never mess with him. But of the two of them, you figure, well, if one of them was going to kill me, it'd be Scott. That all changed on this show.
Not on this night, no.
Rick Steiner was mad. And they fed him Vincent. I'm pretty sure Rick tried to kill him. He beat the absolute shit out of him. He did all of the put your knee on the guy's face.
Yes. My absolute favorite was foot on throat while slapping his face.
It was so awesome. He did my favorite, which is the middle rope belly to belly, where when you do middle rope belly to belly, just for the other guy's safety, you put him on the top rope and you make sure his legs are outside.
Yes.
So that maybe he can push off the top turnbuckle or whatever. His legs,
just so the ropes won't get in his way.
Yeah, the legs aren't going to get stuck in the way. Rick doesn't do that. He sits the guy on the top rope. The guy's legs are inside. He climbs up there. He grabs him, and he just fucking irks him into the atmosphere. Nearly kills this guy, and then goes down, and he puts his knee on his face and pins him.
Yep.
This had to be my favorite squash in at least a few years
How is this
now.
not more famous?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Because later there was stuff like Chris Benoit versus David Flair.
That was better.
And Ultimo Dragon versus, what was his name?
Was it Hayashi?
No,
I
it was,
saw that.
I think it was Tokyo Magnum.
So one of those guys,
One of
yes.
his students
One
he
of the
just
yeah.
massacred. These were the two greatest squashes. And then there was Kurt Angle and Roderick Strong in
Yes.
TNA.
Right.
These are all...
No, that was on SmackDown.
SmackDown. I remember all these off the top of my head. But anyway,
But this
this Rick Steiner Vincent squash should have been legendary.
This is not a squash match. That's something you see in professional wrestling shows.
Right.
This was a snuff film.
Yeah.
This was one man murdering another for my enjoyment.
This was the best minute 34 seconds I have seen all week.
All I could watch this whole time thinking this was, I've probably seen 1,000 times Rick Steiner come out and pretend to beat somebody up.
Right.
But for every time he has pretended to beat somebody up for money in front of a camera, there's probably 10 times where he really beat somebody up for free backstage or in a bar or something.
Sure.
Scary Mofo was great.
Then the show ground to a halt.
The last note, by the way, the whole story is that Rick is heartbroken and is taking out his pain on Vincent and destroys him and kills him and kills him and kills him, and he gets the win, and the ref raises his hand, and Rick's looking down at him, still almost crying, and then his music starts. It's the story of two brothers, Rick and Scott. Just rub it in. Just rub it in. Okay, yes, then the show... God. Yuji Nagata versus Saturn.
Boring.
They kicked each other. They suplexed each other. They used a lot of holds. At no point during this match did any fan care about anything, and so they just kept going.
They worked really hard, but nobody cared.
No.
They wrestled forever. The crowd chanted boring. Saturn finally won. This was bad.
They did mention Rick Martel's knee injury at the pay-per-view, which I believe was a career ender.
They came back for one more match and
No.
got hurt again in that match.
I
Then
see.
his career.
I see. Close. Renegade versus Booker T. Now,
Boring.
It was. I only noticed this because I watched the two shows back to back. Is it just me, or did they edit in Mark Merrow's music for Renegade?
I don't know.
And if so, why?
Who knows? Who cares?
Even more perplexing, they brought in the Renegade to be a knockoff of the Ultimate Warrior, but now they brought him back after months and months and months, and he's Tatanka.
Basically, yes.
Can we move on? This match sucked.
His match sucked. Renegade was no good. God bless the guy. Booker missed a kick, then hit a kick and won.
Conan and Lizmark Jr.
This match
Boring.
sucked.
Dragged on and on and
I'm quite
on and
certain
on and on.
If I went back and kept track, that Liz Mark did at least 2 flips for every wrestling move in this match.
Well, it's 2 flips too many. It sucked. Conan won.
By the way, did we mention we're in a 3-hour Nitro now?
Oh, God.
3 hours we're watching Conan and Liz Mark Jr. with nothing at stake. Conan wins. Then he cut a promo. He said he was bout it. Says Juventud is a loser. In fact, he's lost his mask. He's no longer Juventud Guerrera. He is now merely Anibal Gonzalez. And after burying this guy for losing and being a total dick, he sucks up to the crowd and says, Arriba La Raza! So,
You know what's funny about this next match? It's Bagwell and Norton versus High Voltage. And in a vacuum, it was a pretty good match.
we are on the same wavelength. You're so tight.
But it followed these 3 boring matches, and I was like, please, either kill me or kill this match. Something.
I do not need to, after 5 straight hours of wrestling, watch a high voltage match. I just don't need to.
You know what really hit me during this match? It's not even that the match was bad, but it's the same guys that we've been watching now for 2 years, having the same matches in the same spot on the card every Monday night. Nobody's moving up the ladder.
No.
Everybody's in the exact same spot.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if it's good. I'm bored watching all these guys doing the same stuff every week.
They are running in place.
Yeah. Now, as noted, had this been in the first hour, I probably would have liked this a lot. This is 4 big, scary men throwing each other around. That's what wrestling should be. They tried a double suplex on Norton. He tried to suplex them both. Sort of did it.
Yeah, because one of them didn't get hooked up right.
Didn't put his arm on top of Norton's
No,
head.
he just got his arm hanging down. I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you doing, numbskull? And then he gets dropped on his head because he wouldn't set up right.
Yes, the Blonde Chaos almost died on this show.
Yeah. And then they hit an elevated blockbuster for the win, and they were celebrating, and I said, I gotta admit, they were a fantastic team. Vicious and delicious, I mean. Not high voltage. Eddie Guerrero versus Disco Inferno.
Eddie Guerrero, awesome wrestler. Had a pretty good match with Disco Inferno. Mm-hmm. Why, in God's name, am I watching Eddie Guerrero versus Disco Inferno on this show?
All I
What
could think
was the point?
had I been booking Nitro at this point, I think I'd have had Eddie wrestling about a half dozen times a week. Because he was awesome all the time. Was there a point to this? No. And both guys left the match in the exact same positions they were in. Eddie worked the knee for a bit. Hit a missile dropkick to the knee, which I just love whenever anyone does this. I'm going to climb up as high as I possibly can to kick you in the knee. Then he hit the frog splash and won. There you go. Now, literally at this point, very close to 3 hours into the show, time for a J.J. Dillon Nick Patrick promo. Are you fucking kidding me?
How could how could J.J. Dillon be so awesome in the 80s and be so horrible in the 90s?
Well, let's look at what he was working with. In the 80s, he was the manager of the 4 Horsemen.
That is a valid
in
point,
their
Brian.
prime. Now he's out here ranting and raving with Nick Patrick about his refereeing job in a Hulk Hogan match.
Why is this even part of the show? Why? Referee interviews? Ever?
Well, Nick Patrick's a heck of an interview, though.
Shut up.
Brian, am I wrong?
He's a hell of a referee.
He's a heck of an interview.
Oh, an interview. He was fine. I'm over
Are you
this
sincerely
show.
saying that?
No, he cut an awesome promo
All
last
right.
week.
Greg really liked Nick Patrick's promo. I thought you were being sarcastic. I apologize.
No, last week, this week was but last week he cut an amazing
Last
promo.
week. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Regardless, I do apologize for snapping at you. That was rude.
It's fine, Vince.
So Patrick says, as long as my suspension and back pay is all cleared up, I'll go do this match. There's Brad Armstrong and Ric Flair.
Brad Armstrong. I've so turned heel on this guy, to steal a term.
There was nothing wrong with this match.
Dude, I'm over Brad Armstrong.
Rate
and
Flair
then
matches on a scale of 1 to 10.
Brad Armstrong comes out here wearing an Armstrong curse shirt.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, first off, Bullet Bob had a hell of a career, and he was awesome.
Your brother.
And your brother's on the other show.
Main eventing.
And he totally had a better match than you tonight. With Hawk and Animal, which is not easy. They had a match. When you can't have an exciting match with Ric Flair, I don't know what to tell you. They had a boring match. He hit his side Russian leg sweep finish. Flair just kicks out. And then he kicks him in the balls and puts him in the figure 4 and wins. I was like, what?
I thought this match was good. I didn't have any problem with this match at all.
I'm about to snap at you.
I can't believe you're saying this. It was a good match.
Of the 1,000 Ric Flair matches I have seen, probably 900 were better than
That's
this.
fair.
I'd say $9.95.
Had a giant video package, showed him choke slamming dozens of men, and getting powerbombed on his head by Kevin Nash. And he came out for a promo in a neck brace. He said Nash had been malicious and barbaric and tried to break his neck, but it didn't work. I'm going to get this hand on Kevin Nash. It's fine if the powerbomb is legal. I want Nash at 100%. I don't want any excuses, so I can break him down.
Giant's hair was so pretty here.
It is a shame.
He combed it out and blow dried it. I couldn't take my eyes off it.
So anyway, as I mentioned at the beginning of this show, Dave must have been in a great mood because he thought this was one of the best Nitros they'd ever produced. And he also said, and this was when I knew that he was in a good mood, he said that Bryan Adams came out for a promo, and the shocking thing was it was a good promo. What in the world show was he watching? Bryan Adams came out here and cut the most horrible promo. I can't say ever. That would be a lie. But let's be fair. This was up there. He rambled.
He started off good and then quickly lost steam.
Well, he started off good by noting that he was here to join the NWO, the greatest faction in wrestling.
Yeah.
I wish he would have said, I just came from the worst faction in wrestling, so I've upgraded. And then he just starts mumbling and rambling and talking about Brett, and finally Brett came out. The only good thing about this is Gene was in the ring to interview him, and as soon as Brett hit the ring, Gene does his, ah! And takes a bump and runs for his life.
So Brett basically says, I don't know why you have beef with me, but if you want to fight, we can fight now. So they did. Brett won. I liked when he pulled his shirt up and went full hockey fight mode. That was awesome. He puts him in the sharpshooter.
Yeah, he does. He does a shoot style hockey fight jersey punching in the gut gimmick, and then goes for the sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do.
Seen it many times in hockey fights.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab this guy's jersey and punch him in the guts, and then when he falls on the ice, I'm gonna put him in that hold.
I'm gonna wrap his legs, grapevine his legs, and turn him over. So Hennig runs out to get Brett. Flair runs out to get Hennig. Ric Flair is apparently a Jedi, because he missed a chop by 3 feet, and Curt Hennig went flying.
He did a full spin in the air for a chop
that missed.
I like to think it's like the cats. 2 of the cats hate the baby, and they literally are like Jedis. They have never been touched by this baby, ever. Like, they can be not paying any attention, and when the baby's an inch from them, they'll be out of there like that. They've never been touched. I'll take the cats, and I'll throw them right in front of the baby, and she's about to get them, and they're gone again. I think that
This is not going to end well.
Hennig was like the cat, where Flair was about to get him, but he was gone. He leaped out of the way to avoid the chop.
So what you're saying is that Curt Hennig is a better wrestler than the Headbangers who couldn't do the same thing on Raw.
Yeah.
Right.
Lesson learned.
It's true.
By
I'm
the
not
way,
lying.
Ric Flair in trunks and a sweatshirt,
A little creepy.
not a good look.
A little creepy. CM Punk wants to doing the same thing.
Craig needs to start watching this old NWA with Garvin wrestling jobbers, and they're both in their tighty whities. You ain't seen nothing, dude.
I forget if it was in the ring or backstage, but CM Punk was doing a promo and he stopped in the middle to lift up his shirt and say, yes, I am wearing trunks under here. So anyway, Hart and Flair clear the ring. NWO leaves. Like a minute goes by and Flair says, well, nothing else is going on. I guess I'll get a promo. He buries the NWO. He admits that Brett is the best there is, was, and will be. Says half...
Yes, he says he admits it because Brett beat Rick.
Yes.
And Rick presumed that he would brag about it.
Yes.
But instead, Brett put him over, and so now Rick's cool putting him over.
Yeah.
That was so logical.
Yes.
Yeah.
And respectful.
2 crazy egomaniacs
Yes.
found a way to like each other.
by saying good things about each other. So Brett challenges Hennig to a match at Uncensored. He's going to finish him once and for all. The main event was supposed to be Sting and Scott Hall. The NWO, except Hall, all comes out.
By the way, let's think about this for a second. In the opening segment, Hulk Hogan said it was going to be Hall versus Sting. Mm-hmm. He said that Hall was going to win the title and then hand it over to Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Correct.
So then they came up with this plan.
Right.
Don't know.
Let's beat Sting up before the match and smash him, and we won't have a match for the title at all.
Yeah.
This was a very bad plan.
Bischoff cuts a long, boring promo daring Sting to come out, and if Sting comes out by himself, we'll all leave. So Sting
This moron, Sting, who has been fighting the NWO for well over a year now,
Right.
they say, hey, Sting, if you come down to the ring all by yourself, the 19 of us in the ring will all leave. And what does Sting do?
Okay.
Okay, I'll head down to the ring. What the hell? Stumbles down to the ring and gets his ass handed to him. Because he's an idiot.
Sting turned into Dick Murdoch for a second there.
No, he didn't.
No, it was bad timing for that comparison. Who's a good redneck yokel Sting would sound like? Phineas Godwin.
He turned into Phineas Godwin.
All right, there we go. Anyway, so Hogan's alone in the ring. I guess Sting's going to fight Hogan now. So another Sting appears behind the first Sting. Sting?
8 feet tall.
8 feet tall Sting. Sting turns around, sees his too tall doppelganger, says, "Guy dresses like me, he must be on my side."
Yeah.
He turns his back to him. And the NWO attacks, he's fighting them, and the second Sting pulls off his mask. It's Scott Hall.
I can only presume that the reason Sting turned around was because Hall hadn't attacked him yet.
Right.
And he wanted to make sure that Hall was actually going to show up.
That could be.
And when he saw him, he went back to what he was doing, but he looked like an idiot.
That could be.
He left the gorilla.
Although,
Scott Hall was standing there with a cocktail. I'll see you out there? Yes, I'll see you out there.
if the plan was to jump Sting from behind and not lull him into a false sense of security, why dress him up like Sting? Just send Scott Hall out there with a bat.
Because they had an idea.
So Sting's fighting with the NWO, and Scott Hall pulls out his baseball bat, and he says, "I'm gonna hit this fucker Sting with this bat." And he swings the bat, and it gets near Sting, and he pulls it back like it's bounced off. Sting shows no effect. Sting was not aware this bat had touched him at all. Just keeps on fighting. Hall says, "Uh-oh." Hits him a little bit harder. It leads to a long brawl in the ring. They're all beating up Sting. Savage shows up. They all beat up Savage. They write HH on Savage's chest in spray paint. Luger clears the ring with a chair. This show was so damn long.
And you would be remiss if you did not announce the debut of E. Harrison Leslie.
I forgot it twice on the show.
That's right.
I talked about it in the intro to Nitro, how I forgot about it then. Yes, so the guy who had been hiding in the limo, which I did not connect these dots until hours later, was Brutus Beefcake with a beard and
Yeah.
biker gear.
He's back again. He just won't go away.
Yeah.
And
the announcer's
that's
like, "Who's that guy with the beard?"
How the
announcer-
show ended.
The announcers had no idea who it was.
Oh.
They didn't mention his name.
This is
They
the
didn't
big
call
secret.
attention to it. There's like, hey,
Kinda.
hey,
I
there's
can't
that
wait till
fella.
the big
It says
reveal
that
next
there's a
week.
stranger in the ring.
Yeah.
Yikes.
He
He came out.
Barber of late.
He came out and just stood there,
Yeah. Yeah.
just in the background.
What the else do you want the guy to do?
Go sailing.
He can't do anything else.
He put a sleeper on.
He can't talk. He can't work.
No, he can do a sleeper
He
hold.
can effectively stand there
Could
and
cut
be all
Savage's
hairy.
hair.
Cut Savage's hair.
He was the barber.
He ain't cutting into his hair.
Can't sail either.